Just 2 hours southwest of Tokyo, Mount Fuji reigns supreme on what they call here the Japanese Alps. The mountains cover 70% of the surface of the Yamanashi region. As if to hide from view, one of the best-kept secrets in the country, its grape culture. Most of the wine production of the archipelago is located in this valley. With almost 1,000 acres of tiny plots interwoven between its different neighborhoods, the small town of Katsunuma is the wine capital of Japan. Perched more than 6 feet above ground on huge pergolas, the grapes have shaped the landscape here for 1,300 years. In the heart of the city, a grape unique in the world prospers, the Koshu. This is the only place on the planet where it is grown. Yuji Aruga is one of the largest wine producers in the area. His family estate of 75 acres consists of dozens of plots throughout the city.
This year we've not had enough sun. The weather's good now, but in October it rains so much. This will not be our best harvest. You see what we do here for each grape cluster? 6 months before the harvest, we put small paper hats on them. See how it's done? We staple them over the cluster. It protects the grapes from the rain, and the water does not stagnate on the cluster.
In this country, with its capricious weather, each harvest is a small miracle. The Japanese climate is punctuated by 2 rainy seasons, summer and fall, where the humidity can reach 70%. With the first rays of sun, the grapes ripen, and there is no time to lose.
If we cultivate the vines higher up, it's to keep the grapes high off the ground. If we grew the vine too close to the ground, the humidity of the land would penetrate the grapes and they'd rot quickly. With the pergola, the temperature difference between the shaded and sunny parts creates an air circulation that ventilates the wet clusters.
But the pergola is not responsible for everything. The grape itself seems to better withstand the weather. The explanation may lie in the history of its origins, which long remained unknown.
Recently, researchers discovered the origin of the Koshu. It's a mixture of a European grape, the Vista vinifera, with a grape that came from Central Asia, the Silk Road, with the first Buddhists. It's heartier, its skin is thicker. I think it's through this mixture, this specific DNA, that the Koshu can survive the difficult Japanese climate.
Within minutes, the autumn rain falls again on Katsunuma. Here they call it akisame. The Japanese language has over 50 different words for the rain. If the Koshu arrived from China, with the introduction of Buddhism to Japan in the 7th century. Legend has it that it was right here, in the temple of Daizenji, 1,300 years ago, that a monk started the first cultivation of Japanese wines.
When I walk here in the morning, I do not think about meditating. I think first of my grapes, how I will prune them. I work in the vineyard to keep my temple alive.
Teshu Inoue is a winemaking monk and guardian of the legendary Katsunuma temple grape.
These are bitter persimmons. I also grow the bitter Okinawa gourd and eggplants. We grow many things here.
Within the walls of Buddhist temples, plants with medicinal and sacred virtues were long cultivated. Here, every morning, the monk honors the Buddha of the grape.
When we arrive at the temple, we must always light a stick of incense. This is our Koshu offering. It's the grape that the monk Gyoki brought here when he founded this temple. So every year, to honor him, we offer our first harvest here. One day, Gyoki had a dream. He saw the Buddha of medicine holding a grape bunch in his hands. So he created this sculpture and founded this temple. Then he started making medicinal wine. This is the only place in Japan where you will see a Buddha holding grapes.
In the Buddhist religion, rituals are used to hunt Bono. Human weaknesses, there are 108 that exist, such as desire, anger, or even pleasure. During 40 minutes, the prayers chase away feelings that prevent man from achieving detachment. For the monk winemaker, enjoying the wine is not a weakness. It even fills a quasi-religious function.
Drinking wine serves to relax us, helping us to chase all the desires that blind us. This is how we should see things. When you drink, it makes you more gay, does it not? In Japan, we have a saying, "Fortune comes to he who knows how to laugh." If we put joy into life, we invite happiness and chase away disease.
If medicinal wine has been around for many millennia, table wine has only been produced for 130 years. In the basement of the monk Inoue, the methods are still rudimentary.
Here is a barrel of Koshu wine, white wine, 2,000 liters. That's the sugar. We added 200 kilos. As Koshu's sugar is not concentrated enough, we add more, and the sugar turns into alcohol. This is how the wine reaches 13 degrees.
Chaptalization, which consists of adding sugar to increase the alcohol level, is a practice that is closely monitored in France. Here it compensates for the lack of grape sugar concentration, a trait proper to the Koshu variety.
Well, normally it is a dry wine. For now it still has a strong taste of sugar, but I'm sure it will be good. I think the grape Buddha will be happy because this year's wine is very promising.
Koshu wine does not always enjoy a good reputation, and the cepage is sometimes considered bland and bitter. But today, a new generation of winemakers is experimenting with a different approach. On the other side of the mountains, at almost 2,300 feet above sea level, the small valley of Volcano enjoys the most sunshine in Japan. It's here that a young winemaker decided to innovate, sometimes against the advice of her elders. Go ahead, I'll follow you. At 36, Ayana Misawa is one of the youngest winemakers of the archipelago. She is also one of the most famous. In 10 short years, she has upset many wine habits. Her vines are grown with trellising, that is, vertically, the only way, she says, to produce a quality wine. What's the sugar level today?
20,
How much?
20.7.
20.7, that's good. But always taste to check them. On pergolas, the yield is very high, 500 or 600 bunches on one big vine. But here, in vertical, we get 10 to 20 bunches on each little trunk. Our grapes are more concentrated in sugar. That's why I grow vertically. It increases sugar concentration, and that's what makes the quality of the wine. The grapes are concentrated, very sweet, and at the same time, it keeps good acidity. I think it'll make a good wine. To become an enologist, Ayana left to study in France, and then went on to large domains in South Africa, Chile, and Argentina. Japan has never left her. She always knew she would return to the family domain, where they have been winemakers for 5 generations. They grow 6 kinds of varieties, and the one which Ayana spends her days and nights on is the most despised of all. It always annoyed me that Koshu is considered low-end wine. I think it has more potential. That's why I wanted to try to do things differently. But if we want to change things, it takes a lot of passion and courage, and also lots of love for Koshu. But I have all this. This year, due to bad weather, Ayana garnered only 6.5 tons of Koshu, half of last year's harvest. But the quality of the grapes has rarely been as promising. With Koshu, to obtain a quality wine, you must press the grapes gently, almost tenderly. Here, they only vinify 16 tons of grapes annually. Nothing like what Ayana would have experienced in the large domains of South America, where they harvest 430 tons of grapes every year. The young woman, inspired by all her experiences abroad, has adapted them to suit her modest production. To see large and miniature is called Japanese genius. What I learned in France really influenced how I do things, especially the work in the vineyard, grape farming. However, what I learned in Chile and Australia influences my work in the cellar more. The winemaking part is more technical with them. Ayana likes to mix influences, but at the sorting table, her Japanese culture prevails here, as she works very meticulously to music. Alongside Ayana, her mother sorts red grapes for over 6 hours. If you're not concentrated enough, you let twigs in, and it lowers the quality of the wine. If we want a good wine, it's essential to concentrate like that. Grape sorting exists for all winemakers in the world, but I think that in Japan we do it more rigorously than elsewhere. In some countries where I worked, I remember some people use their cell phones while sorting. In Japan, that would be completely unthinkable. In this small country of 126 million people, wine has not historically been a part of its habits. Traditionally, they drink sake, shoshu, sweet potato alcohol, and beer. The Japanese drink less than 2 liters of wine per year, compared to 50 liters in France. So every month, Ayana goes to Tokyo to become the ambassador of Japanese wine. To get Tokyoites to discover a wine, they must have good presentation and form. Honored at the tasting today, her favorite grape variety, Koshu, as transparent as glass and delicate on the palate. Right now, what are you doing? The Koshu harvest just began fermentation. It's far from finished. I must get back to work after. In Japan, wine lovers are sometimes more familiar with European crus than with Japanese wines themselves. In the Japanese spirit, the first Koshu remains a table grape, with the large grapes eaten for dessert. You see, that's the Koshu, the wine you're drinking. It's quite different from what you imagined, right? It's tiny and fits in my hand. The first arrivals will get a taste.
How come the grapes are so small?
Because we grow vertically.
This is because the trunk is small?
That's right. That creates a more concentrated grape, and we give them less water. Oh, it smells very good. It's refreshing. It has a citrus scent. I think it will marry perfectly with the delicate Japanese cuisine. Like more and more affluent Tokyoites, this group of friends has been traveling to tastings for 10 years. When it comes to honoring Japanese culture, even today we dress accordingly. Today, for the occasion, we came especially in kimono. We chose something not too light, not too sober, a kimono that would go well with both the season, the kitchen, and also with the Koshu wine. Before, wine was bitter, not drinkable for me. It was hard to enjoy it. And then I went to a French bistro, and progressively, eating good food and taking time with my friends, I appreciated the wine. And for the first time, I really enjoyed what I was drinking. I think Japanese habits are changing. 10 years ago, only the wealthier drank Bordeaux and Cru Classé, for example, in European gourmet restaurants in Kyoto. Now it's democratized. The Japanese are increasingly interested in wine, even the youth. It's evolving slowly. In the last 15 years, the consumption of wine in the capital continues to increase, while the production of sake decreases. This new culture inspires films, manga, and even encourages the vocation of oenologist among young urbanites. Tokyo tasting evenings may well count more fans. But you must have worked hard in the vines for the privilege of tasting a meal prepared by Ayana's mother. Let's taste this. Oh, there's nothing better. For each generation of the Misawa family, each meant to serve the vine in his own way. For 40 years, Ayana's mother always knew where she belonged. It was a question of harmony. For me, the most important is that we can produce wine. And we can't produce a good wine if we're not in perfect form physically and mentally. I'm here to play the role of mother, forming a small family with its grape pickers. That's what makes good wine. In my eyes, cooking a good meal is something essential. At the grape pickers table, Ayana's father, Shikekazu, is the reigning patriarch of the dinner. He is one of the great architects of the rebirth of Koshu and encourages his daughter as long as he can. For us, it's really impossible to make a boundary between work and family. My father is the owner of the vineyard. My mother helps, and I'm working as winemaker and enologist. It really is family work.
I would say I represent tradition, and my daughter is innovation, which must always evolve. And finally, that's what makes a good wine, the balance between the two. And in Japan, we have a proverb that says, the elders must hand down to their children, so I must trust her. But it works only if the children also respect their parents. If there's no respect, the balance is not possible.
Ayana doesn't place good luck charms in her vineyards, as her ancestors did, but she still maintains a mystical dialogue with Mount Fuji, which watches over her land as much as threatens it. 2 hours from her vineyard, the Shinto temple Fuji-ongu is dedicated to the king of volcanoes. Today they celebrate the end of the harvest. "3,000 people have come to honor the kami of the mountains, the divinities that were willing to let the land prosper again this year." Ayana has come as a neighbor to thank the gods for sparing her grapes and to find out what the future holds. Her destiny is contained in an omikuji, the little paper oracles that one chooses. I'm happy because it foretells what's best for me. As for my vines this year, it was very difficult because of the rain. I worry about my wine. I hope that the fermentation will be good. But the oracle foretold a great success. I'm very happy. It's encouraging. Of course, at the same time, they also say we must remain vigilant and work. In Japan, you can never be the best without going to some trouble. With the help of the gods and Ayana's efforts, the Koshu grape could become popular with connoisseurs. And the Japanese archipelago's wine may finally come out of its isolation, even if its modest production will always be a rare jewel.